So, did Terry's memory come back? No, not yet. Well, we're super lucky that she forgot only about us.
My husband and mother-in-law took advantage of the fact that I was sleeping to reveal their true nature.
I hope we can get her to come back to our place so we can use her again. Why do I have to do all the housework? It's a real pain in the ass. She's the one who's supposed to be doing all the work. Why don't you get better by now, you useless bitch?
My name is Terry, a 32-year-old office worker. This sucks. I don't know how I let it happen. Then I heard a familiar voice and I opened my eyes. Terry, you're awake. Thank God. I opened my eyes and there was my mother with tears in her eyes. I looked around and realized that I was in a hospital room. Mom, why am I here? Seems like you suddenly got dizzy outside and fell down the stairs. What? Is that so? You had a concussion and lost consciousness. You were rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Don't apologize. I'm so glad you are awake. I'm gonna get a doctor now. Said that, my mother left the room. And then a man came into the room, as if to replace her. The man was looking at me awkwardly. Terry, are you okay? Excuse me? Who are you? Do I know you from somewhere? What? I'm sorry, I don't remember. You're kidding, right? I'm Vince. I had no idea who he was. This man calls me by name, as if he is familiar with me. But for some reason, I can't remember anything about this man. I've never seen his face before, and I think I've never heard his name before. Vince? Then the man said something surprising. I'm your husband. What? I was confused. I was supposed to be single. I was never married. But the man in front of me says he is my husband. You don't really remember anything, do you? Well, that's... I don't know. I don't even know if I have no memory under the circumstances. While I was in trouble, my mother came with a doctor. Oh, Vince, you're back. Yes, I brought her some change of clothes. My mother and the man are having a normal conversation. Could this man really be my husband? The man looked troubled and started to explain the situation to my mother. Terry doesn't seem to remember me. Maybe she has memory loss. Huh? My mother and the doctor's eyes widened at Vince's comment. Let's arrange for an examination immediately. The doctor said so, and I was admitted to the hospital for a test. For a few days until the test results came back, many people came to see me, one after another. People from work and my friends came to see me. I remembered them all. I tried to remember what I did for a living, and I did. How on earth could I have forgotten the man I called my husband? And there were other people I couldn't remember. His parents, especially my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law came to visit me several times, but I couldn't remember her, as I couldn't remember my husband. I remembered the others no problem. I only forgot my husband and mother-in-law. Then the doctor told me the results of the test. At first, they thought it was traumatic because I fell down the stairs. However, they said it wasn't traumatic because I didn't have any bleedings in my brain from hitting my head on the concrete in the street. Therefore, they said it was probably psychogenic, triggered by the head injury. The doctor's diagnosis made some kind of strange sense to me. Whenever I try to remember my husband and mother-in-law, I get pain in my head. It's as if there is something I don't want to remember. I wonder if my memories will ever come back. My husband and mother-in-law are surprised that I don't remember them, but they seem to be concerned about me.
Doctor, how long is Terry going to stay in the hospital? I hope you let her out soon. I heard she fell down the stairs. I'm glad she's all right.
But the doctor had explained to them, but they'd better wait a while.
And even if she could be discharged, it would be better for her to stay at her own parents' house until her memory comes back.
When the doctor said that, the in-laws' eyes widened.
Why? Terry is my wife.
That's right. And she was living with us.
Are you saying you were going to take my daughter-in-law away from us?
I was surprised at my mother-in-law's sudden loud voice. The doctor was also surprised.
Please, calm down. Also, this is a hospital, so please be quiet.
When the doctor said that, my parents-in-law kept their mouths shut. At this point, I had a sudden headache.
Terry, what's wrong?
The doctor noticed something wrong with me. I'm sorry, my head hurts.
Let's get you checked out right away, shall we?
After the doctor said this to me, he urged my in-laws to leave. The in-laws left the hospital room with grim faces. Their faces did not show that they were worried about me.
Are you okay?
After my in-laws left, the doctor asked me with a worried face. I felt a little better, actually, after they left.
I see. You probably didn't have a good relationship with your husband or his parents. Well, I guess that they were putting a lot of stress on you. Ring any bells?
I don't know, but I guess you're right. That's what I thought when I heard the doctor's words. I'm sure that what happened at my parents'-in-law house was so bad for me that my brain drowned out the bad memories of when I was badly injured. When I think about it, their panic when I was told by the doctor that I should go back to my parents' house seemed suspicious to me. Perhaps they were in a hurry because they would no longer be able to use me for their convenience. I instantly became afraid of my in-laws. What in the world were they doing to me when we were living together? The only thing I could think of while living them was bullying. Did my in-laws treat me that badly? But when I try to remember what happened at my in-laws' house, I couldn't remember at all. When I try to remember, my head hurts like hell. When I told my parents about it, they were very worried. But honey, you told me that living together with them wasn't a problem.
Maybe you were holding back to avoid worrying us. Right, Terry?
I don't know, but if that's the case, I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. You're still at a loss of memory, and we don't know the truth yet.
Then, my father seemed to have an idea, and he suggested something. I wonder if it's safe to do that, or he'll find out.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't find out.
I was worried, but I wanted to know the truth anyway. So I decided to carry out his plan.
Terry, how do you feel?
The door of the hospital room opened, and my husband came in.
What? You're sleeping?
He mumbles to himself. I am awake, but I am pretending to be asleep for some reason. I wonder how my husband will react in front of me in my sleep. I am watching him carefully to see if he reveals his true nature again. He sits down on a chair next to the bed and sighs. I hear the lid of the can of coffee pop open. Then I hear the sound of coffee gurgling down my husband's throat. I took deep breath and pretended to be sound asleep. Then the door to the hospital room opened again. I thought my husband had left, but it seemed someone had come in. "Vince, you got here first." "Oh, Terry asleep?" "Yeah, she's been asleep since I arrived." "Are her parents here?" "I haven't seen them yet. I don't think they are coming today." My husband was checking to see if anyone else was coming to the hospital room, as if he had something to hide. I thought it was kind of weird. And they started talking something unbelievable. "So, did she get her memory back?" "No, she hasn't." "So, she still doesn't remember what happened when she was injured?" "That's right. I don't want her to remember that anyway." Well, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that she's forgotten about us. My husband and mother-in-law took advantage of the fact that I was sleeping to reveal their true nature. "I hope I can get her to move back to her house so we can use her again. Why do I have to do all the housework? It's a real pain in the ass. She's the one who's supposed to be doing all the work." "Yeah, right. Why don't you get better now, you useless bitch?" When I heard their disparaging tone, suddenly a memory came floating back to me. Very, very bad memory. I remembered that I was treated horribly by mother-in-law on a daily basis. "Hey, Terry, what's with this food? It has no flavor. Make it again right now." "But your husband likes it light flavored." "I like strong flavors. Make mine stronger." "But if I make a new batch now, I'll be late for work." "I don't care if you are late. It's more important my husband and I will have decent meal." Not only does my mother-in-law have me make breakfast for the four of us, she even made me cook lunch for my mother-in-law and father-in-law every day in the morning. Plus, I had to prepare a lunchbox for my husband, which made me extremely exhausted every morning. And when I came home from work, I had to prepare dinner. And then I had to do the laundry and cleaning. I always bathe last. And it's only at midnight that I can go to bed after all the chores are done. But in the morning, I have to wake up at around 5 a.m. every day. They were abusing me like this, so I was physically and mentally exhausted. I was in such a state that I could have collapsed at any moment. And I also remembered the time when I was injured, when I lost my memory. It was when I was in the car that my husband was driving. We had gone out that day to buy a birthday present for my mother-in-law. My husband had forced me to go to all kinds of stores. He finally decided on a gift and we were driving home happily. But at the time, I was so tired that I fell asleep in the passenger seat. Then my husband stopped the car suddenly and snapped at me. "You've got to be kidding me. What are you doing sleeping?" "Oh, I'm sorry." "Get out of the car and walk home, you lousy wife." The next thing I knew, he got out of the driver's seat and opened the passenger's door. He unbuckled my seatbelt and tried to force me to get out. I made a crouching motion with my hands on my head, but my husband grabbed my arm and pulled me down. I fell to the ground with great force. I probably had a concussion from the strong impact and fainted. This is how I remember everything. I had to leave the hospital as soon as possible and call the police. I acted as if I had just woken up, just as the in-laws finished their conversations. When they realized I was awake, they suddenly smiled and pretended to be kind to me.
Terry, you are awake. How you feeling? Take it easy. You can count on us if you need anything.
I was so scared when they said those kind words to me. I'm sorry. I guess I fell asleep. I've been doing the test all day and I am exhausted. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. I'll see you later.
I apologized and they left with smiles on their faces. I called my parents right away. I told them about what had happened and how they had treated me. Of course, I told them about the time I was injured. My parents were very surprised and furious. They immediately called the police and filed a damage report. And we made up our minds to ask for a divorce. But all this had to be done without my in-laws finding out. I was discharged from the hospital and went back to my parents' house for the time being. My father and I visited my in-laws and asked them to let me take some of my belongings so that I can stay with my parents for a little while to rest. My in-laws asked me if my memory had returned, and I lied and said it still hadn't. My in-laws looked worried at first, and I told them that doctor told me that my memory might not come back at all. When I told them that, their eyes lit up.
Well, I'm sorry about that. But don't worry, honey. You come back to us when you're feeling better, okay?
Yes.
We care about you very much, Terry.
My husband and mother-in-law are saying such things. My dad clenched his fist, but managed to calm down and be patient. He went to my room first to get my stuff. I collected my clothes and some other things, trying not to let my in-laws know. After that, I went straight to the police station with my father. I explained the circumstances of my injury and filed a damage report. The police said they would start investigating immediately. Then we hired a lawyer and discussed the divorce. Fortunately, I kept diaries of the abuse I received daily all this time. It was an unbelievable number of abusive behaviors recorded. My lawyer said that if I had this much of evidence, I could file for alimony on my demands. And when I was all set, I decided to meet with my husband. I sent a message to my husband that says, part of my memories came back, and I wanted to talk to him. Sure enough, he brought his mother with him. So I brought my father and my lawyer.
So, Terry, isn't it true that your memory came back?
My husband and mother-in-law looked very upset. I told them calmly, showing no emotion. Yes, I remember. I remember how you got me injured and how your parents bully me. They turned pale when I said that. But my in-laws, still thinking they can get away with this, continued.
Wait a minute. Do you have any proof that we did that? Yeah, Vince is right. Don't you dare say such a stupid thing. I can sue you for libel, you know.
My husband and mother-in-law are still threatening me. Then, with a sigh, my lawyer opened his mouth.
Terry kept dozens of diaries to record the abuse she received from you too. She also secretly recorded your conversations in the hospital. at her father's suggestion. The conversation when Terry was injured is also in evidence.
When the lawyer said that,
They were understandably upset. Wait a minute, recording?
I put the finishing touches on my husband's hesitation. I've already reported that you caused my injury.
I filed a damage report.
The security camera on the street caught you pulling me out of the car. One of these days, the police are going to bring you in for arrest for assault.
Oh no, this can't be.
My husband tried to run away. Then the lawyer said,
If you run away, you'll be charged with even more serious crimes.
He fell on his knees and his mother froze. Her face was also pale. I'm divorcing you, and I am going to charge you alimony for the mental anguish as well. I said this and left with my lawyer and my father. After a while, my divorce from my husband was finalized, and the alimony was paid. And my ex-husband was arrested for assault. I did not settle and prosecuted him, and my ex-husband was fined. My ex-husband had already paid me alimony, and his savings were gone. So his parents paid the fine for the assault. His workplace found out about his arrest, of course. My ex-husband was fired. Furthermore, the neighbors and relatives got to know about it, and the family became completely isolated. Because of his criminal record, my ex-husband could not get a job at all, and he shut himself away from the family. My ex-mother-in-law has to support a grown-up child with a small pension and is forced to live a poor life. I, on the other hand, have successfully returned to work. I am working hard now, and I've just been promoted to manager. Now that I am back at home, I can save most of my income. Recently, I've been investing the money I've saved to increase my assets. I don't want to be in a relationship for a while. Instead, I'm going to take trips with my parents and spend more time with my family.
To call an ambulance for a mere headache and vomiting is overreacting. If you are so worried, why don't you just come home and take care of her? I mean, isn't that your job? Don't rely on me. I don't have time for this. I'm leaving now. You have to take care of the rest of yourself. While my daughter cried and crouched in pain, my husband left the house. She had always been healthy and never had any serious illnesses. How was it an overreaction when such a daughter was suffering? It was clear that he was not concerned about her at all. I was out working at the time, but fearing for her life. I immediately returned home and called an ambulance myself. If I had been there for her from the beginning, she didn't need to suffer so much. As I held her hand, I cried from frustration and blamed myself. 5 days later, when my husband finally called me, I quietly told him, I'm in the middle of our daughter's funeral. I'm Stacy, 45 years old. I work part-time and do my best to take care of the house and raise my daughter. I met my husband through a matchmaker. When I was single, I had a full-time job in a field that was dominated by females. It was difficult for me to meet someone at or through work. I had always had a strong desire to get married and didn't want to wait until I was older. I decided to go to a matchmaking service and was introduced to my husband, Wayne. He was a meticulous person who did things very carefully. On the other hand, I was more laid back, so at first I thought we were two opposites and incompatible. As we got to know more about each other, we came to respect our differences. We were so in love that it was hard to believe we met through a matchmaker. I was grateful for my luck fate. When we got married, Wayne only wore the ring during the ring exchange as he was allergic to it. We enjoyed our honeymoon period to the fullest, and then we conceived 2 years after our marriage. A healthy baby was born, and we were overjoyed. You did great, honey. We have a very pretty baby girl. Thanks, hon. She's adorable. Let's do our best to raise her with lots of love. He was totally head over heels for our daughter, Mia, even more than I was. He even used her birth weight for the license plate number and passwords. Seeing him like that filled me with the warmth of love, and I believe we will continue to live happily ever after. As the months passed and around the time Mia entered high school, Wayne suddenly started working overtime a lot. I'm in charge of a new project now. I'll be home late today, so don't wait for me. In the worst case, I have to stay overnight at the office. I understand. It's really tough every day, isn't it? I'm grateful that you're working hard, but don't overdo it. I'm sure it's okay if you come home early once in a while. Love you. I was proud of him for climbing the ladder at work. However, he seems to be overworked to the point of locking himself in the study on his days off. I understood that he was exhausted and needed some time alone. There were hardly any interactions with his family, which created a gloomy atmosphere in the house. Mia had always been a daddy's girl since she was little. Dad's been locked in his study a lot lately. I understand that he's busy, but I want to hang out with him like we used to. She lamented with me. I knew I had to do something for her and suggested to Wayne, Hey honey, why don't we go out for dinner this coming weekend for the first time in a while? I was taken aback by his unexpected response. You're gonna be kidding, right? You know I'm exhausted. Is this harassment? Why can't you just let me relax on my day off? He suddenly lashed out at me. You don't have to get mad at me. It's not good for you to stay cooped up in your room all day long. Going out is a good way to refresh yourself after a hard day's work, isn't it? I tried to calm him down. Leave me alone. You guys go ahead and do what you want. He was adamant in his refusal. Since then, he began to pick on me out of his frustration and sarcastically commented, I so envy your freedom. I spent more time with Mia, but she was hurt by not getting attention from her father and locked herself in her room. I felt that my family was on the verge of collapse and hoped that once his project was finished, our normal, cheerful life will return. 1 month had passed since then. I'm going on a training trip with my team for 5 days starting tomorrow. I was surprised at the suddenness of the news, and at the same time, I asked him what bothered me. Oh, that's so sudden. Besides, it's already been a month since you were assigned to your new project. Are you still doing the training? I questioned the duration. Nothing odd about the prolonged training. Keep your nose out of my business. He kicked me to the curb. I was frustrated with his grumpiness and wondered when he would be able to spend time with the three of us. The next day, he was getting ready to leave for the trip. He was still at home when I left the house for work. My daughter was off school for a substitute holiday. I thought they could spend a little time together before he left. I was hoping that they could talk about some of the things that had piled up. Right after I arrived at work, I received an unexpected text from Mia. Mom, my head hurts so bad. I feel like it's going to crack. I feel nauseous too. I can't take it anymore. She seemed to be fine when I left home, but she suddenly felt ill. I called her in a hurry, but she wasn't picking up the phone. I called Wayne for help. Are you still at home? Mia sounds like she's in a lot of pain. Can you call an ambulance right away? I had lost my grandmother to a subarachnoid hemorrhage, so I was very concerned that she was suffering from the similar symptoms. It's just a headache and vomiting. Don't you think you're overreacting? If you're so worried, why don't you come back and take care of her? I'm leaving soon, so you take care of the rest. His reaction was unbelievable. Despite his daughter's distress, he was about to leave for a trip. Wait, what the hell? How could you not help your own daughter when she's in such trouble? Is your job that important to you? I lashed out at him in a harsher tone than usual. I'm telling you, you're just making a big deal. It's raining today. She must be feeling the pressure. Anyway, if you came back, the problem would be solved. Time management is a basic rule for my job. I can't be late for something like this. He threw all the responsibility on me and put his work first. I felt no affection for Mia from him, who used to care so much about her. I hung up the phone and made my way home, praying. He had already gone, and I found Mia unconscious in the living room. The ambulance came right away and rushed her to the hospital. I called Wayne after the doctor explained to me her symptoms. He must have been busy and didn't pick up my calls. If I had been there for her, she didn't need to suffer so much. I shed tears and regretted my helplessness. 5 days later, I finally received a call from Wayne in the evening. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "You don't have to prepare my dinner tonight." I was stunned for a moment. I had been wondering how he could come home after leaving Mia in that condition. He didn't even call to find out how she was in those 5 days, and it sounded as if nothing had ever happened. I cut to the chase and told him, "I'm in the middle of our daughter's funeral right now. I can't prepare dinner anyway. Your trip is over, right? Can you come over now?" As a father, it was expected of him to attend his daughter's funeral. To my surprise, he kept indifferent. "Oh, I see. Well, I won't be able to make it. You can deal with it yourself." He showed no sorrow whatsoever. I reached the boiling point and my anger exploded. I resolved to tell him everything that was on my mind when he got back home. He returned late at night. "Why didn't you call an ambulance right away? Do you have any idea how much you suffered?" I had been waiting for this moment and immediately started attacking him. "Oh, come on. I haven't been home in a while and you don't even welcome me back. Even if I called an ambulance that day, it doesn't mean she survived, right? What's done is done. I brought you some sweets. Make yourself feel better." I was stunned by no sign of remorse from him and lost all energy to argue. He seemed to take advantage of it. "Give me all the insurance money. I'm the one who has been paying for everything in regard to our daughter. You're just a part-timer with a low income, so you have no right to it." He grinned at me. "How can you say such a thing right after losing our precious daughter? It's not all about work. Why don't you think about your family a little?" His inhuman arrogance infuriated me. He was not intimidated by me, though. "It's your responsibility to take care of daughter's health. It's your fault for not fulfilling your duty. It's a false accusation to say that she died because of me." He snapped back at me. I knew that arguing with him would get me nowhere. I produced an image that caused tremendous stress for Mia. You hurt her and put her under stress to the point of destroying her health. Don't tell me you know nothing about this. I showed it to him on Mia's phone. It was a picture of him shopping with a young woman, arm in arm like a couple. On the day he left for the trip, Mia took the opportunity of being alone with him. She showed him the image she had taken and asked him about the affair. She also recorded the conversation. He flipped out knowing it would be a huge problem if I found out. How dare you! If you tell your mother about this, I'll make sure you will regret it. He threatened her. She told me all of this despite suffering in the hospital bed. That's been having an affair with a young woman behind our back. It was so unbelievable, and the shock and the stress were too much. I started getting headaches and nausea. He used to love me and cared for me, but I can't take it anymore. Mom, please, will you leave him? I demanded a divorce in response to Mia's request. Wayne looked at me, unfazed, saying it wasn't enough to prove his affair. Then, how about these? I threw printouts of the correspondence between him and his adulteress as conclusive evidence. You can't be serious. You got into my computer without my permission. I never told you my password. His expression changed drastically, and he was agitated. I took a liberty. You used Mia's birth weight as your card plate and PIN, didn't you? I thought you might have done the same with your password. Sure enough, I was right. When I looked at his emails and the messaging app on the computer, I found more than enough evidence. He lied to me and Mia that he was busy at work, but in truth, he had been almost cohabiting with the adulteress. The training trip he said he was going on with his team was just a trip with his adulteress using his paid leave. It's an invasion of privacy to go into someone's computer without their permission. He put up a desperate fight, but I relentlessly pursued him. It's wrong to keep things hidden from your family, don't you think? Oh, by the way, I also found a record of you unlawfully obtaining company money to pay off your girlfriend. You can't get away with it now, can you? Admit it now. He fell to his knees in a panic as all his wrongdoings were exposed. I told him I was returning to my parents' house and left the house. A few days later, we filed for divorce. I was to have custody of Mia. I moved her to my parents' house while Wayne was away and focused on getting evidence of his infidelity at home. Before he returned from his trip, I had completed the moving process as well. By the way, I lied to him about Mia's funeral. I wanted to see him weigh between Mia and his affair. He thought that if she was gone, the affair would not be exposed and he could secretly pay back the company with the insurance money. I realized what a scumbag he was, and I still shudder to think until this day. I gave evidence of him swindling company money to his HR, which led to his disciplinary dismissal. He was asked to refund the exact amount he had spent. He lamented that the amount was so inflated and that there was no way for him to pay in one lump sum. He was such a meticulous man that he had carefully written down the address and phone number of his adulteress on his computer. I contacted her and exposed the whole thing. It's normally a good thing to be meticulous, but in his case, it completely backfired on him. Thus, he's been dumped by his adulteress, and even his parents cut ties with him. He's been living lonely and working hard to pay the alimony, child support, and refunds to his ex-company. I've been told that he was so anxious about stealing money from work, so he was taking his stress out on me. I'm really sorry. I only gave in to stupid temptation. He apologized and tried to get me back with him. It's way too late, and I refuse to forgive him after being subjected to immense stress every day. Mia, who used to be a daddy's girl, says, I never want to see him again. She's been receiving the support of my parents and me, and positive advice from a friend in a similar situation. She's getting her normal self back. Are you sure you're happy that we got divorced as you wanted? Of course. A father I don't care about is nothing but a nuisance. I'm very happy to realize how deeply you cared about me. Thank you for being there for me, Mom. I love you. Thank you too for being my daughter. I love you so much. We held each other tightly in tears, realizing once again the importance of each other. We're taking the first step toward a brighter future together.